Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're a sustainability or climate risk professional, you already know the landscape is shifting rapidly beneath our feet. Today, we're going to drill down into the new International Sustainability Standards Board, or ISSB standards, and translate this massive new regulatory architecture into hard, actionable insights for your risk and reporting workflows. Let's get right into it.
Right off the bat, I want you to ask yourself a serious question. As these standards roll out globally, are your organization's data systems truly prepared to handle the shift from voluntary, fragmented frameworks to rigorous, standardized financial disclosure? Because, it's one thing to write a sustainability report for marketing, a glossy PDF with nice photos, but it is an entirely different ballgame when your climate data faces the exact same scrutiny as your financial statements. Auditors are going to be looking for investment-grade data now, and man, that introduces a massive amount of operational friction.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll cover 1, the new global baseline, 2, inside IFRS S1 and S2, 3, TCFD and SASB integration, 4, ISSB versus CSRD, and finally, 5, global adoption timelines. Starting off with Section 1, the new global baseline.
The core objective of the ISSB is essentially our new true north. They're establishing a high-quality global baseline of disclosures that arms primary users, meaning your investors and creditors, with consistent, verifiable financial information. And notice the heavy emphasis here on assessing enterprise value. This isn't about, saving the world in a vacuum. It is explicitly about demonstrating how sustainability factors directly impact a company's bottom line and future prospects. Climate risk is absolutely being treated as financial risk now.
Let's move right along to Section 2, inside IFRS S1 and S2. To really understand the mechanics of S1 and S2, we have to look at the architecture. And if you've been in the climate risk trenches, this is going to look incredibly familiar. It's built on 4 pillars derived directly from the TCFD recommendations: governance, strategy, risk management, and metrics and targets. S1, which covers general sustainability requirements, and S2, which is climate-specific, use this exact framework to structure your disclosures. So the good news? Your existing reporting muscles just need to be flexed in a much more rigorous, standardized way. Now, the crucial point underlying this entire framework is single materiality. Unlike other standards that look at your company's broad impact on the world, the ISSB's focus is strictly on how external sustainability factors financially impact you. You have to clearly communicate to investors how these risks and opportunities are reasonably expected to affect your cash flows, your access to finance, and your cost of capital across the short, medium, and long term. To put it simply, it's not just about how your factory pollutes a nearby river, it's about how a potential drought in that river fundamentally impacts your factory's production capability and ultimately your revenue. Zooming in specifically on IFRS S2, this standard requires you to disclose your precise exposures. So you need to map out your physical risks, like extreme weather disrupting your supply chain, as well as transition risks, like new carbon pricing mechanisms or shifts in consumer behavior. But importantly, this isn't just an exercise in doom and gloom. S2 dynamically shifts the conversation by requiring you to also outline the strategic opportunities available to your enterprise as we transition toward a low-carbon economy. Which brings us to Section 3, TCFD and SASB integration. Now, if you're worried about starting all this from scratch, take a breath. Think of this entirely as an absorption process. The TCFD provides the structural foundation, those 4 pillars we literally just discussed. Meanwhile, SASB transitions from a standalone voluntary alternative into the official industry-specific guidance for IFRS S2. So all those years your team spent aligning with the TCFD, that work translates directly over to this new era. The TCFD has essentially been disbanded and fully absorbed into S2 to create a highly streamlined system. And because a global software enterprise and a multinational mining conglomerate have vastly different climate risk profiles, SASB's Sustainable Industry Classification System remains absolutely vital today. It tells you exactly which metrics are financially material to investors for your specific sector. SASB ensures you aren't just dumping generic data on your investors, but rather the highly specific metrics that actually matter to your industry's enterprise value. Let's pivot to Section 4, ISSB versus CSRD. Okay, you're going to be doing a lot of mapping here, because these 2 major frameworks serve very different masters. The ISSB is a global baseline focused on single materiality, again, financial risks to the business, designed specifically for an investor audience. The CSRD, on the other hand, is a mandatory European Union law that demands double materiality. That means under CSRD, you must evaluate both the financial risk to the company and the company's societal and environmental impact. It caters to a much broader, multi-stakeholder audience, including regulators, NGOs, and local communities. Strategic consultant Miriam van der Velde hits the nail on the head here. She notes, the biggest challenge for CSRD compliance is not just collecting data, but also managing it effectively across the entire value chain, ensuring it's accurate, auditable, and future-proof. That quote perfectly captures the operational reality on the ground. Building flexible data systems capable of serving both the narrower, investor-focused ISSB and the incredibly broad, deep ESG demands of the CSRD is a massive undertaking. I mean, just imagine the friction of extracting investment-grade, auditable carbon metrics from a Tier 3 supplier halfway across the world. Your architecture needs to slice and dice those metrics for financial investors while simultaneously tracking broader impacts for European regulators. Finally, let's wrap up with Section 5, Global Adoption Timelines. The geopolitical reality right now is that early movers are already locking in their specific regulatory requirements. We're seeing jurisdictions from the UK to Australia, from Brazil to Japan, all moving aggressively to integrate the ISSB baseline into their local laws. This is no longer just some conceptual framework being debated in boardrooms. It is rapidly becoming hard, enforceable law around the world, and it's fundamentally altering global trade and compliance structures. When you look at the chronological rollout, you can see exactly when mandatory reporting and, crucially, assurance requirements hit different jurisdictions. Australia is moving extremely quickly, with initial reporting required in 2025. Then you see a massive wave of countries like Brazil, Malaysia, and Ghana hitting in 27. And we really need to highlight a critical shift here, the move from limited assurance to reasonable assurance over time. That means, in the near future, your auditors are going to demand the exact same level of ironclad proof for your climate metrics as they currently do for your revenue numbers. Now, to ease the initial shock and operational burden of this rollout, the ISSB is offering some crucial transitional reliefs for year 1. You are allowed to take a climate-first approach, meaning you can delay broader sustainability reporting to focus just on climate. You also aren't required to report those notoriously difficult Scope 3 greenhouse gas emissions from your value chain right away, and you don't have to provide comparative historical information in your very first year. So this provides a vital, albeit brief, window of relief. It allows your team to prioritize setting up rigorous data pipelines before scaling up the whole shebang. So, I want to leave you with this thought to take back to your risk and reporting teams. As this regulatory alphabet soup finally crystallizes into mandatory, auditable law across the globe, is your organization truly ready? Because when the global baseline becomes your local law, relying on estimates and spreadsheets simply won't cut it anymore. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to start auditing those data systems today.